So now that we understand how to create new layers and how to arrange them using the layer adjuster tools and the layers palette, let's talk a little bit more about this layers palette. And I'll just go ahead briefly and just collapse this color set library and pull this down to elongate this so that we can see all of our layers at once. So we have our canvas, and then we have layer 1, 3, 2, and 4. You can see next to that we have a little thumbnail, and the thumbnail is showing us the various different colors. Now, of course, just like most palettes, we can change the size of those thumbnails, and if we click this little flyout menu right here, you'll see at the bottom all the way down, you'll see that we have no thumbnail, small thumbnail, medium thumbnail, and large thumbnail. You can choose whichever you like. I tend to work with small thumbnail most of the time. Now, next to the actual layers, you'll see this eyeball. And what this eyeball is saying is turn the visibility on and off for those individual layers. And this can be something that can be really useful. The other thing that we can do with these individual layers, and probably in this case it might not be a bad idea to do that, is to go ahead and rename these layers. And we can do that by double clicking on the name. So if I double click on that name, now I could type something like, and then just go ahead and hit enter, and that's accepted, and that is now renamed. So I could do that with all these, but I'm not going to waste your time making you watch me do all that. Now the other thing that we can do is we can lock layers. You see here at the bottom we have this little lock icon. If I click that lock icon, that layer is now locked. I can't do anything to that layer. If I try to move it, you'll see that it won't let me select that. Even though I'm clicking on the black, it just won't let me select it. It'll automatically select whatever's underneath, but it won't let me select the black. And even if I turn off the auto select layer, as long as that layer is locked like so, I will not be able to move it. So the reality of it is that when you want something to be set in stone and to not change for any reason whatsoever, then you want to go ahead and lock it. Now if you want to turn off the lock, just click on the lock like that and it's no longer locked. And now we can click it and move it just like we were able to move it before. If we double click on a layer, you'll see that we get a bunch of information about that layer. First of all, we can rename it here if we want to. We can also see the position in our X and Y Cartesian coordinate system. And we can also put a note for this layer if we want to have a notation for ourselves later on as to what it was we were thinking in this layer or what we wanted to do with the layer, or you want to send a layered file to a client or an editor so that they can take a look at what you're doing and they can have notes. This is a really great way of annotating your documents. So don't forget about that one because that's a really nice little feature that is hardly ever used. If you see down here, we have a trash can, and the trash can basically allows us to delete a layer. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer real quick. Now you can see there is no confirmation dialog asking us if we're sure that we want to delete it. So make sure that you either have undos available to you or that you really want to delete this before you click that, because it won't give you the confirmation asking, do you want to delete that? The other thing that's pretty cool about working in the layers palette is that we can control our opacity. And what I mean by that is that we have a number of objects right here that are basically designed to allow us to work with our opacity or our transparency in different ways. The first one here is preserve transparency. Basically, if we click this, it locks the transparent pixels of the document. And in this particular instance, I'm painting on layer 2, which is this red layer. If I go up to my brush and I paint with this black color, you'll see that it will only allow me to paint wherever that red was. And wherever the transparency was, I'm not allowed to make any changes to those pixels. Those pixels will remain completely masked off from my ability to work. And this is really useful. If I click on layer 3 and I make sure that preserve transparency is on, I can do that with layer 3 as well. So you can see how useful that can be. I'm going to go ahead and undo those real quick, like so. I'm going to turn off preserve transparency. Next to that, you can see pick up underlying color. Well, pick up underlying color is going to be something that is really going to be really important when you're blending. If you're going to a blender and you're saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead now with the blender and I'm going to pick something like the Real Pointy Blender. And I'm just going to go ahead and begin to blend. Oop, I was on the wrong layer. Make sure I'm on layer 2. There we go. You see that even though there's color underneath, it's picking up sort of an imaginary white color there. And that's not what I want at all. I don't want that white mess that it's giving me. So what I want to do instead is I want to make sure that I go over here and I want to pick up underlying color. And I'll just go ahead and undo those last couple strokes like so. And now that I've got pick up underlying color, you'll see a completely different blending Now it's going to go ahead and blend in with that orange. Even though they're on completely different layers, it's going to bring some of that orangey yellow up to my red color and blend them together. If I do it over here, you'll see that the blue and the green are going to be brought up and they're going to be used to work in our red. Now, if we turn off all the visibility for everything else, but just this layer, you'll see what has actually happened. So you see here we have actually brought some of that orange to this layer, and we've brought some of the green and blue to this layer. We didn't actually change any of the underlying layers when we were working that way. All those layers are exactly the way they were before. All we've done is brought some extra pixel data up to this layer so that we get a smooth color transition when we're blending instead of getting that white stuff. So that's what this pick up underlying color is all about. The next thing is an opacity slider. So I'll just go back over here and I'll grab my chalk again. If I'm over here and I'm working with this red, let's say I want to go ahead and reduce the opacity of that red so that it's more transparent. In chalk, this is not necessarily a very natural look. However, there may be times when you want to control the opacity with other painting tools. So generally speaking, those are the basics of working with your layers.